Antec, one of my favorite computer maker companies. We're gonna look at another case today. This one is very interesting. And Antec are consistently putting some features that I absolutely love, but they also have some aspects that I don't agree with. Hey guys, welcome back to our Houses channel. My name is Ivan, and today we're looking at the Antec DF700 Flux. This case retails for $110, so exactly the same price as the one you just saw recently last week, the Corsair Frame Series 4000. And how this case from Antec are comparing to the Corsair case, we're gonna find out today, and if it's worth spending $110 on this one or maybe the one from Corsair. We're gonna dive in straight into the details, so it's gonna be lengthy as always. Get yourself comfortable, get yourself a drink or a snack, and come along with that journey with me so we can see what's outside and inside of this DF700 Flux. So starting with the contents of the accessory box, which is located in the hard drive cage and inside the case. What we have here is the screws, nothing too fancy, only 4 zip ties, an additional hook and loop strap that is branded Antec. We have the case user manual and the user manual for the included in the back fan and ARGB controller. And this is one of the things I really like about this case, included fan and ARGB controller. This is my preferred method of controlling the fans and not let the motherboard or software or anything else that I want to install in there to control the fans. Much better to have it hardware controlled. And now we're going to move into the back of the case as always to see what are the options and how easy it is to mount anything. So looking at the back side, we're going to start from the top. As you can probably see, we can only mount here a 120 millimeter fan or 120 millimeter AIO. No option for 140, which speaks immediately to the width of the case. It's not too wide, unfortunately, so you're not going to be using maximum amount of fans or maximum size of fans you hear, but luckily you can move it up and down, which is a plus in this situation. We have one of the included 5 fans in the back already mounted, Antec branded, and you can kind of peek and see all the other 3. This is one of the things that I want to mention right away. The front 3 fans are ARGB, right? Excellent. The back fan, no ARGB. And the fan on top of the power supply shroud that it sucks air from the bottom chamber and pulls it out is also not ARGB. So how much money they saved from having 3 ARGB and 2 not ARGB? I really don't want to know, because ideally I would have loved to see all 5 fans be ARGB controlled, but now it's kind of like, I might have to replace this one and this one if I want to use ORGB, and trying to find a way to make it work. So it's a little bit weird in my opinion. Moving lower, we have the 7 AIO planks in the backs. Those are not the cheap ones that you break off and throw away. These are actually with screws. You can take them off and store them somewhere. They're perforated, and this is all fine. Now here is the problem. You cannot rotate this whole section the other way around or horizontal for a vertical mount GPU. Unfortunately, this case was not designed with a thought about having all these super heavy GPUs nowadays that I personally prefer to mount them vertically so they can have a little less stress on the core of the GPU. But here we have the same exact system to protect the mounting system. Is just unscrew these 2, slide it away, and then unscrew the planks. Traditional, nothing too fancy. If we move down below, again, no frame for the power supply, just an open, put the power supply from the inside and screw it up. Again, nothing fancy here. Backside of the case is very traditional, very like cases that have been made for many years. You'll see the distance immediately here. If I go lower, the legs are not too far from the desk or the ground, depending how you want to put this case. We're looking at probably half an inch off the ground. Luckily, the legs on the bottom are rubber. They're not foam, so they're very sticky. And if you put them on some surface like this, the case is not going anywhere. The filter for the power supply, unfortunately, is accessible from the back. It's not from the side. So you're gonna have to consider the distance between the back of the case and the wall if you have it, in order for you to pull this and clean it. And in order for you to pull and clean it, it's not just, you can't just put your finger here and pull, because there's little tabs on that filter. You have to pull it down and up. So not very easy to be done with one hand. I'm gonna attempt, but
I am failing because these little tabs are very hard, and you see if I push on the tab on top, it releases. But in reality, you're gonna have to lift the whole case up in order for you to pull the filter down and pull it. And as you can imagine, if you have hardware already mounted inside, lifting the case up will be not too easy, but the filter itself is really nice. I have to say it's one of those honeycomb backed supported filters. It's pretty large, covers a large portion of the intake for the power supply. So yeah, good job with the filter. I wish it was from the side, would have been so much better, but this is what they decided to do. It's very traditional way of putting these filters, which is not ideal. Okay, now we're gonna move on the back side or the right side of the case to reveal what's inside, the cable management and everything else. So this is how the right side of the case looks like. You see the panel, and on the bottom we have large perforations for extra ventilation, and there's a filter behind it, but we're going to show in a second. Very nice thumb screws. I have to say these are not the small well, these are not these are the normal ones that our companies put on the panels. These are larger, easier to grip and easier to unscrew by your own hands, and also they're capped so they're not going to go anywhere. Once you do this on boat, easily just grab and pull. There's no holding tab or anything like this, just like you saw on the Frame 4000. So as soon as you remove that, it's done. And here's the filter on the opposite side, which is good to have because really you don't want any dust accumulating there. It's magnetic, it covers completely the whole and those penetrations, so that's absolutely fine. So now that we have everything revealed, we're going to start from the top. Large penetrations, 2 of them reinforced, making the frame very solid. Ideally, I would love to have a full penetration here because sometimes the cables are not here or here, they're kind of in the middle, so you're trying to finagle things around and trying to figure it out how to run those cables. So ideally, full penetration would have been nice. But that's what they've done. And now I see the holes right here for the motherboard, the top of the motherboard to about the roof. You have 2 inches distance, which is fine. We're gonna see how that accommodates 360 on the roof. As always, here are the cables from that back fan. You'll see the fan right here routed already and going to our fan controller. Those are 3-pin fans. They're not 4-pin PWM. That's why we have this controller that will make the RPMs and everything else controlled for us. Well, controlled, obviously. And this is the RGB connectors from the front fans right here. We have an option for 3 more, so keep that in mind. That's very useful in case you want to add 3 more fans or replace the ones from the back with another set of fans. You have 3 more. You can control the RGB, of course, as long as they're 5 volt. And I love that they did a standard 5 volt connectors here, because some makers do their own proprietary connectors, so I really don't like that, but this is ideal. Here are the fans where they're plugged in, all the 5 fans included. And of course the opposite connector right here is one is going to go to your motherboard, and one for SATA power, and another one for the RGB to the motherboard. So you are covered all around. Now if I pull all these other cables, let's see what else we have here. Per usual, we have the audio cable, we have the USB 3, again with that super stiff connector, because we have 2 on top, it's even stiffer and harder. We've already talked about the fan controller, so now on this side we have the hard drive LED, power LED, and the power switch. So these are kind of like free flowing inside. And then the back side here, you see how the cables are routed on the top of it. You know, again, not my ideal preferred configuration. I would like to see these AIOs in the bottom, because my case always sits on top of the desk, and in order for you to turn it on or plug in anything, you have to get up off your chair and look up. And if the desk is too high, again, you gotta fish for this power reset button. Good thing that we have separate power and hard drive LEDs, that way you know what's what. And yeah, they added a rubber cover over the USBs and the headphones and the microphone, which is good, because if you're not using it, you don't need dust to be accumulating inside. And separated headphone and microphone is always better. I always prefer that. a little branding from Antec here, and the buttons are one of those little clicky ones. So not bad IO. I just wish it was on the bottom, and no USB-C here. You will notice this right away, kind of omitting some of the newer motherboards, unfortunately. As a cable management, we have already included two Antec branded hook and loop straps, and around the back of the motherboard penetration there's plenty of tying points. We have two SSD mounting points right here already with the planks. It's one of those that you lift up and take it out, mount your SSD, put it back in, slide it. Plenty of space throughout your cables in the bottom. Tying points more here. So I don't see any major problems with the back of the case. Plenty of space here to route your cables, plenty of space to manage them. Now, if we look at the power supply compartment, a really good thing they've done here. Look how thick this foam isolators are. They are covering almost the entire length of the power supply lower part. So if you put your power supply here, it's not only going to stay secure in place, but it's going to be isolated from noise and hitting the metal. It's not going to scratch it, and it will keep it slightly off elevated from the bottom, so even more air will come in. Excellent job. I really like that implementation. And if we move slightly forward, here we are with the hard drive cage. We can mount one here, one on top. Again, this is not something I'm doing. It's screwed in, so I can remove it from the bottom, take the whole cage out, and leave more space inside for the cables from the power supply. Again, it's 2025. I'm not using conventional old school hard drives in a gaming computer. You can kind of peek and see a little bit of the fan over here, so it's going to blow some of the air on the bottom, which is okay for the power supply, and if you have any other drives installed here to provide some more air, so that's not bad. Other than that, again, super classic look. Nothing unusual, nothing too fancy. We're not having removable motherboard tray here. We don't have anything well engineered, unfortunately. I mean, for the same amount of money the Antec are asking for this DF700 Flux, I think Corsair Frame Series 4000, it's a much better buy. I mean, they're exactly the same price, $110, and for $110, I can tell you the other one is much better. Okay, so now we're gonna move into the front, see how they handle the intake of the air. So here's the front of the case. I really like this wavy mesh they've done. I definitely appreciate the stylistic approach to the design. A little more wavy, more interesting, not your typical like a flat surface of mesh. So definitely they're getting points for this kind of design. I like how they've handled that. A little branding on the side, Antec right here, and you can probably guess there is no filter between this fine mesh outside and the fans. All you need to do is to remove, you got to put your hand in the bottom here, there's a little knob, and by the way, there's no hole, there's no penetration down here, so huge points for Antec. They've been doing this for a long time, and I've mentioned it many times before in other videos. One of the few companies that are thinking about covering that penetration here, that normally a lot of people leave so you can put your fingers and pull, but instead they give it a little knob, which I'm going to show you as soon as I remove this front, and that way they're eliminating the need of you putting masking tape or stuff like here, so the air with the dust does not just bypass this whole front and go underneath and start accumulating. So with a sharp pull on the bottom, this whole front falls off, and if I reverse it, let me put it on the desk real quick and you guys see. So the distance between the actual fans and the front of the mesh is about inch and a little bit more, maybe inch and 3/4. Plenty of distance for these fans to breathe. I really like that. Yeah, cheaply done here with these plastic clips, but hopefully you don't have to remove it too often. On the opposite side though, if you want to clean the dust that it's accumulating here, wash it, stuff like that, you're gonna have to pretty much remove it maybe once a month at least, so you're not allowing that dust to accumulate. And what I was talking about a little bit earlier, this is what they've done here. You see how instead of a hole on the bottom of that front panel, they have that little knob from plastic that you can put your fingers and pry the front off. Much better decision, and thank you Antec for continuing to creating it this way and avoiding having a big holes. So in the front they're stating 3 120s, 3 140s are available. So yeah, I can see The sides where you can install the 140s. Currently we have the 120s. Personally, if I'm buying this case and already spending $110, I'm not planning on investing in more new fans or stuff like that. I'm going to use these already included fans. And again, these are just regular ARGB Antec fans, 120 millimeter. I think they're going to have plenty of air being provided inside. You'll see how the cables are routed here. They're not through their individual holes, which are included, but rather than right here through the middle, going straight into the fan controller. Not bad, pretty good cable management. And once you install everything, none of that is going to be visible. It's not obstructive. So behind you have nothing, in the front you have nothing. Plenty of air will get inside the case and ventilate and cool your components. So I'm not really offended by that. Simplistic, but again, to me, the price of this case should have been around $70, $80 max, because for 110, why not get something much better engineered, right? Something that gives you more options. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the front. Let's go in the main chamber and discuss everything else. So looking at the main chamber now, and I have the power supply connected with the fan so you guys can see the RGB and everything else. You see how all the fans are actually spinning. The most noticeable thing here right away you're gonna notice is this fan included. So this is a fan that actually has the blades reversed. In other words, it's sucking the air from the inside. It's not your typical blades like this one or this one, which is fine. But then again, I've mentioned that before. If you mount a power supply, even the shortest one will come about to here. And this is the power supply I'm using for testing. Obviously, this is, you know, super old school power supply. But even with that power supply, it comes up to here. So you're blocking some of the air coming from that bottom chamber. Now, imagine if you have a longer power supply that's 17, 18 centimeters long, something like 1000 watt or maybe 850. It's coming up to the middle of this fan. So this fan is basically doing nothing. So my first idea will be immediately removing this fan, taking it out, never using it. So I'm not seeing why they've included this fan. Honestly, at this kind of configuration, this fan should be omitted and the price of the case should have been lower. Or if they wanted to add more fans, add 3 more RGB fans on the roof of the case. That way you can at least use those, maybe replace your existing AIO fans with them, and that way it becomes uniform. In the current situation, I'm not a fan. Now I'm gonna silence myself for a second so you can hear the noise of the fans. This is the maximum speed of all the fans without any obstruction. So you can kind of get an idea of how it's gonna sound if you have all these fans at the maximum speed. Now, to me, they don't sound too noisy, but again, keep in mind this is a maximum speed of 5 fans running, and if you have an AIO that have 3 more, you're amplifying the sound. You're gonna have to play with the RPMs of these fans to lower it down a little bit. The front fans are pushing plenty of air. I mean, I can feel the air coming in big time over here. The rear one is probably the most silent one, so pushes a lot of air there. This bottom one, imagine if it's obstructed, it's gonna make even more noise. But the internal chamber is pretty clean. You'll see there's just a couple of penetrations here for the cables to be ran. A couple of mounting points for drives, obviously, that you can use as well. Some mounting points here on top. I think their idea is maybe using for pumps and stuff like that. But there's not a lot of room over here. We're looking at inch and a half, maybe 2 inches top if you want to mount a radiator on the front. I've mentioned that before. I'm not a huge fan of mounting radiators in the front unless it's a custom loop. For 360s, always the roof is my #1 choice, is the best. Penetrations behind over here when you can route your cables. Large honeycomb penetrations on top of the shroud, and here we have a penetration as well. And the side glass panel over here is full side glass panel. It is 3mm thick, fully framed, so all around framed with a metal. So it's not bending, it's not really jeopardizing the integrity of it. Pretty thick glass. Honestly, they could have saved some money and keep the glass up to here. My preferred method, that way you're saving some money, and at the same time you see all the internals, because if it's full like that, but here is a big slab of metal, what's the point of it? I don't get it. And seeing the label of my power supply, I don't really care about that. So yeah, this is one of the things they did. And that makes the case even heavier with the full glass panel, by the way. Now, to control the RGB currently is possible from the reset button. This is how they wired it. So if I press it, changes colors, cycles through different modes, breeding modes, steady modes, different colors, all that. That's good. You know, we have the typical full rainbow RGB. This is the default, by the way. I really like that one. But if I want to match the internals of my case, I'm going to cycle through the colors and find the one I like the best, which is awesome. And this is how it looks on this perspective. You can get an idea how the RGB looks on these ones. Excellent. Nothing really to gripe about. You see how thick this front panel is from the fans to the outside. So yeah, inch and something. You have plenty of room for these fans to breathe. Now on top we have removable dust cover, which is with magnets, very slim magnets, by the way. This is a small dust cover, and here we have only a 360 option. So no option for thicker or wider radiators here. We have the 360 only, unless you want to use 280, which maybe you do. I'm not a fan. If I'm using something for cooling, it's going to be 360, especially for those new CPUs today. They're all pretty hot, so the largest you can get is probably the better. So yeah, same exact honeycomb penetrations on top. Let's see if I can fit my Arctic 360 that I'm always testing with, because it's thicker, and if a case can accommodate one of those, it's a great case in my book. So initially, by default, I could not fit this radiator. I actually had to take the fan onto the lowest possible position. You remember at the beginning I showed that the fan in the back can be moved up and down, and if you don't move it all the way down, you're not going to be able to put a thicker radiator like this one. And even if you have the chance to move it down, you see how much space you have. Still, the front where the tubes are, they're almost smacked against the fan, and I'm showing you as close as possible. You have probably couple centimeters between the tubes and the fan, which will create more noise in my opinion, because it's right there in the front. Not ideal. Can be done, yes, absolutely. And if I go down below with a camera, you will see how much space you have. Basically similar situation to what we have with the Corsair. The last three screw points for the motherboard are definitely above the line of view of the fans, so you got to mount that first before you put your 360, and hopefully you don't have higher heatsink on a RAM, otherwise it might hit the 360 on top. But it's usable in situations, so keep that in mind. If you want to be more safe, probably regular size or a regular thickness AIO will be more appropriate. And you might say, well, what if you reverse it around and put the tubes on the other side? Well, let's try it and see. So if I try to do this, it's definitely not possible. You see that the tubes are immediately hitting that back fan, and in order for you to do it, you're gonna have to completely remove the fan so you can situate this whole radiator on top. See how it's hitting the front here. Yeah, not a lot of space, not ideal if you are somebody that wants the best consumer 360, which, you know, the Arctic is, by many other outlets, tests, and so on and so forth, because it's so much thicker, has great fans and all that stuff. The space, not ideal. I wish the case was at least half an inch or inch longer, and then thicker and taller. But again, I'm sure I would have put them on a different price bracket. So yeah, this is the only option to do it this way, with the tubes facing the front of the case. It's doable, not ideal, not the best space I would like it to have and see, but it's doable. Again, for the money, I think they should have given us a little more space in this case.
All right, conclusion time. And what do I think about the DF700 Flux from Antec? You guys heard me throughout the video talking about many things that I can see. Then this is why I'm going to every single detail, so you guys can make an educated purchase in the future if this specific case fits your specific build and the parts you have, or maybe you should work with something else. To me personally, if I'm building a computer right now, I don't think the DF700 will be my choice for all the things that I mentioned. I think size-wise, they're hit by shrinkonomics as well. I personally prefer just a little bit more. Just give us an inch height, inch width, and length of the case. In this case will be absolutely perfect because you'll be able to fit anything you want inside with no problem. Now, yeah, I know this is not a brand new case, it's not just released and all that stuff. That's why maybe some of the features are omitting here, like rotated backplate, there you can convert your graphics card from horizontal to vertical and vice versa. But yeah, still for 110, you will see that the Corsair Frame Series are offering that. Other cases, like from other cases from Thermaltake that I've showed you, also offer that. So this is a feature that I'm be looking these days for all these heavy GPUs that are on the market. Including 5 fans is great, but why is only 3 ARGB and the other ones are not? Makes no sense to me. Also, the one on top of the power supply shrouds, unnecessary. The power supply is blocking that intake. It becomes even noisier. No reason for this one to be there. Figure out a way to bring air inside if you want to. And personally, I think the front 3 fans are sufficient enough to bring plenty of air. You don't need the one on top of that shroud to blow into the graphics card. Yeah, that's unnecessary. Only 120 in the back. Yeah, 140 would have been even better, especially if you bring a little more width to the case. One of my favorite things about this case is the included fan controller and RGB controller with extra slots. That way, if you have a 360 on the roof, you can connect these fans as well to that controller, control them from the same spot, synchronize all the RGB. It will look so much better. Speaking of 360, you saw what happened. Arctic, barely possible. You have to finagle things around, shift fans, have the tubes too close to the front. So some inconveniences, not looking ideal, not looking perfect, but it's doable somewhat. So yeah, consider that if you want to use the Arctic. If you're using just a regular 360, something from the very popular other company that is producing and OEMing 360s for pretty much everybody else, you should be fine with that. I absolutely love no hole in the bottom of the front panel, no extra filter to obstruct the air, a nice fine mesh in the front, wavy design, really nice, and plenty of air is coming. Nothing is obstructed, nothing is created extra noise, and just a little knob, grab it, pull it away, no hole to collect the dust. But yeah, my general take on this case is a lot of good things have done, some missed opportunities. I think what's stopping me to really recommend this case is the price. For 110, I will tell you, go right ahead and get the Frame Series 4000 from Corsair or any other case that it's 110 and offers more space and more versatility, because this one is somewhat limited to what you're seeing in the video. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Hit the thumbs up if you like the video, stay tuned to the channel, subscribe if you're new, check out the link in the description below if you want to support the channel directly. It helps me tremendously to bring you videos like this regularly. I have 3, 4, 5 more cases to show you. Very interesting from kind of different budget levels. This is more on a higher end, but yeah, I think some of the other ones might be clear winners in a lot of aspects. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. And as always, you have a wonderful day.